Welcome to the video, Enhancing Your Sound with the Sustain or Damper Pedal. Playing with the sustain pedal is one of my favorite things to teach and to use in my own playing because when it's used correctly, it can instantly elevate your sound. And in fact, it's one of the quickest ways to take a song from good to amazing and help it sound like someone has been playing for years. Even if it's the simplest song you are playing, it can sound gorgeous. I love to see my students' faces after they have heard how impressive their playing sounds when they add the sustain pedal. In fact, here's a story to paint a picture for you of the intention of the sustain pedal. In the past, when I needed to book recital locations for my private teaching studio, I tried renting different sizes of rooms with different types of pianos, but the place I ended up sticking with, even though it was the most expensive, was this place that had a grand piano on a stage in a large, beautiful chapel. My students loved playing there because we would open up the top of the grand piano and the acoustics in that chapel made it sound like their playing was naturally sustaining and ringing out, almost echoing, but without being overstimulating. They got to experience that performance hall sound of the music reverberating and filling the whole room, and whether they were beginners or more advanced, their playing sounded amazing. And when they played their final notes, the sound would linger in the room for a moment afterwards and then fade away. That is the effect that using the sustain pedal correctly is meant to mimic, to enhance your playing and allow the harmonizing notes to beautifully linger as if you were on stage in a performance hall with amazing acoustics. So basically what the sustain pedal does is just what its name says. When it is held down, it sustains any notes that you play so that the sound rings out, adding a richness or a mysterious or beautiful sound, like this example. If I first play C chord skipping up patterns all across the piano with no pedal, then it sounds okay, but listen to how amazing it sounds when I hold down the sustain pedal. Isn't that incredible? The sustaining notes can really help add drama or soul-stirring emotion and beauty to your playing, and it can really help you sound connected. But the bad news is using the pedal wrong can also ruin how your playing sounds, making it sound like the overstimulation station. There's definitely an art to using the pedal correctly to enhance your playing without sustaining too many competing notes at the same time. So in this video, we will be learning how to use the pedal correctly and some mistakes to avoid. This video is a bit longer because I felt that if you actually could see how the sustain pedal works inside of a real piano, then you would be able to keep that visual in mind to help you understand the effect you're adding so you can sound your best, whether you have an acoustic or a digital piano. So that will be the first part of this video, is seeing how the sustain pedal works. And then in the second half of this video, we will learn how to use it. Also, if you have a digital piano or keyboard, then there is often a place to plug in an electronic sustain pedal, which is designed to mimic the sound of what takes place inside an acoustic piano. How does the sustain pedal work inside a real piano? We're going to look in my upright piano today. And you can see that it is very complex inside. The higher notes have these thin, delicate strings, and the lower notes have these thick strings. Each string has a wooden piece with felt on it touching the strings to keep them silent. This piece is called a damper head. The string won't be able to vibrate and make a sound while the felt is in contact with the string. So when you press a piano key, the back part of the key raises and causes the damper head to move away from the string while the hammer hits the string, causing it to ring out. But the minute I release my finger, see how the damper head goes back and silences the string. In fact, this is a good time to show you why it's so important to play legato and to glue. If I disconnect these three notes, you can see that the damper head has silenced the string before I've played the next note. But if I connect them all, see the gentle movement of the damper heads. By the time I've played the next note, it's kind of melted into the following notes so that you never have to hear the sound stopping. The problem we have is when we're playing our left-hand chords, we have to lift our hand to be able to move around to the different chords. And also in the right hand, when we're playing a piece and we have a big jump, there's no way to connect it. So our song has to sound choppy. That is where the sustain pedal comes in. On an acoustic piano, there are usually 2 or 3 of these foot pedals, and the sustain pedal is always this one on the right. Now if I press the sustain pedal with my foot, then what will happen to these damper heads? See, when it's pressed, they all move away from the string, and that will allow whatever I play to ring out because the strings will be free to vibrate and won't be silenced like this. Now when I put the sustain pedal off, it silences the note as soon as I'm done playing. Let's look at the rolling C chord again. When I hold down the sustain pedal, but when I take it off, so since it sounds so impressive like a performance hall when the sustain pedal is held down, then a rookie mistake that people tend to make is they love how it sounds so much that they think, oh, I'll just hold it down the whole entire time I play my song, like this. You see how it quickly became so overstimulated? All those competing notes were being held out at the same time. It was as if I did this. You don't want to work so hard on your playing and have it sound like discordant noise instead of beautiful piano playing. The pedal is meant to enhance playing that is already good, as connected as you can make it with legato and with a natural touch on the keys. It's not meant to be used to cover up all the mistakes and meld them all together. So soon when we learn pedal, we're going to learn when to press and release our foot at the right time so that we're only sustaining harmonizing notes instead of mushing all the different notes together and sounding discordant. So if I was to play the same song example again, then listen to how it sounds when I only sustain harmonizing parts. While we're looking inside a piano, let's quickly cover what these other 2 pedals do so you'll know on your piano, even though we won't be really using those in Piano with Ease unless you want to. So this pedal here on the left is sometimes known as the soft pedal. Watch what happens to the hammers that hit the strings when I hold down that left pedal. See how it brought all the hammers closer to the strings? That means when you play any of these notes, the hammer has less distance to go, and so it makes your playing sound a little softer, versus if I don't have it on and do. See how it made it just a hair softer. Now, not all pianos have this feature, but do you see how there's a little notch cut out on my middle pedal? This is a practice pedal, and it's so you can push it down and to the side. And what that has done up here is, see how it puts this layer of felt in between the hammers and the strings. So when I play, it sounds extremely muffled. This is called a practice pedal, so you can practice softly. Only new pianos have it. Usually the middle pedal on older pianos, what it does is it sustains all the lower notes till about like the halfway point of the piano, so that you can do like a big epic chord over here and then come in your right hand and do a bunch of fast little high notes. It won't sustain the right hand high notes, but it will sustain what you've done down here in the low notes. Here's a quick warning though, if you do have a practice pedal, then you don't want to practice with it on all the time, because the downside I've seen is that it often results in people playing very heavy-handedly on the keys with too much force, because the soft pedal prevents you from hearing how loud you're landing. So then when you play on a different acoustic piano that doesn't have a practice pedal, you often don't sound beautiful. It sounds extremely loud and forced and way too heavy. Now let's look at how the pedals should feel. If I use my 2 fingers and I go to press the sustain pedal, it definitely has some resistance. It's not easy and loose. All of these should have some resistance because they're hooked to their mechanisms that are then hooked to the poles that are then hooked to the hammers or the damper heads. So if it feels really loose or goes immediately down, I've had that before on different pianos, and when we opened it and looked inside, there was a screw loose or this bar was off. So if you think something's wrong with your pedals, then have a piano technician look at it, perhaps at the same time that they're tuning your piano. We just looked inside an upright piano, but here is a video of a grand piano where the strings are stretched out horizontally. The mechanics inside work differently, but you will still see the damper heads moving away from the strings, allowing the notes to sustain.